Parents help their children many different ways overcome different issues, including gender stereotypes. But are we doing a good enough job? Many of us aren't. Our next guest is going to give us some tips and advice and discuss really gender stereotyping in general. I'm joined by the author of the fabulous book, What Do I Do While You're Pregnant? Kenny Bodanis joins me. Welcome to the show. Kenny.
Thanks for having me
It's
back.
great to have you here. So how prevalent, first of all, are we seeing? Has it changed at all? Are we still doing the same stereotyping that we did 30, 40 years ago?
Not as much, but still, yes, it is very prevalent. I think in our age group, social media gives us the impression that we're more progressive than we really are.
Okay.
Because there was a study done that involved 20,000 11 to 18-year-old girls in the United States, and a strong portion of them still prefer to see a male politician, still prefer to see a female daycare worker, still prefer to see a female educator in primary level, and I think that we're less ready than we think we are to let those stereotypes go, and those still get reinforced more than we'd like to admit.
What are some of the reasons those girls are looking at those stereotypes like that?
Well, for the most part, it is still a very centrist view that there are roles for male and female. I think most people, whether they choose to admit it in public or not, want their girl to meet a good provider. They want their son to be a good provider. They want their daughter to be ready to take on a maternal role. And that goes for our age group, especially from the grandparents' age group that reinforce that through gifts, how we decorate our children's rooms, the conversations we have around the table. For instance, if my daughter came up and said, you know what I want to do when I grow up? I want to open my own construction company.
And then what would the response for most people be? Oh, really? Are you sure?
Not especially from the grandparents, but even around a table, they would go, oh, and a lot of the men who are still, oh, just, well, I don't know. Well, why not, right?
Yeah.
Why not her? And that's an ongoing battle.
And even some of the questions that we tend to ask other children, right? You know, I think you gave some great examples of a parent or even a family friend saying, hey, do you play hockey to the son?
Absolutely.
Right beside the daughter, who may very well be the hockey player of the family.
That's right. My son doesn't play hockey, and my daughter is much more physical and more active in sports than he is. But it's still a natural progression, and it's going to take a full generation. I think our children, once they have children, will do a much better job of getting rid of that than we will.
How are they going to do that?
Well, it's going to be,
question.
Here's where the tricky thing is, because I know a lot of our generation, especially those of us who try to think of ourselves as progressive, like to challenge that at every opportunity, right? A daughter comes up and say, you know, you'll ask a son, do you play hockey? And they'll go, well, why don't you ask my daughter if they play hockey? And we're doing what we think is right, but I think there are places to pick and choose where you have that argument. Because if you don't do that, you risk embarrassing your child, because of course, a child doesn't want to be standing next to a parent who's constantly challenging the people in front of them at their expense. But I think it is important for parents, once you get home, to go, you know, I realize you keep getting asked whether you play hockey, and I know, daughter, you don't get asked, but you have to realize I want you to feel free to do whatever you want to do. And if you want to have a construction company and you want to be a ballet dancer, this is a safe place for you to encourage that and come and tell me that, and let's sign you up and let's get it going. And encouraging them behind the scenes and knowing home is a safe place to come home to, I think is going to go much further than picking your battles and having public wars with everybody you come across.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But so can you give us an example of picking your battles? Like when would you find it an appropriate time? Perhaps with family instead of with the parent you occasionally see at the hockey rink.
Right, like family dinners, especially I think when they're small and intimate gatherings, that works a lot of the time too. And if it happens repetitively, I think at some point you have to raise your hand and go, you realize every time you come, you keep asking him whether he does this or that, and you don't ask her. You may want to ask her that sometimes. And it's also in the way it comes across. It's not you know, not only boys play hockey, but make an awareness and make it safe for them. Don't make them feel as though they have to spot check their dialogue and feel apprehensive about having free dialogue because you're going to jump on them. And it's about how you say things.
Right, and I was going to say, your role as a parent as well, maybe sharing more information to family and friends about your son and your daughter.
Exactly.
Right? Because, you know, the grandparent may choose a particular toy, as you described earlier, that they have no idea. They just figure, okay, well, she's a girl, that she's going to love this kind of thing.
Exactly. You give the boy the fire truck, there's nothing wrong with next time. Hey, you know, Johnny loves the fire truck. You'll never guess. Betty is also loving playing with that fire truck. Really? Yeah, and that waits away. It's on the phone. You've sent the subtle message. And a subtle encouragement in making home a safe place, I think.
Great advice, Kenny. Thank you so much. Always
My
a
pleasure.
Always a pleasure having you on the show. Don't go